Hi, sheep friends. Welcome back to Feed the Sheep podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey Keeling of Balanced Ruminant Grazers. I'm a Christian, wife, mother, and a sheep farmer. I call myself a lifelong learner, which is perfect for a podcast. So let's get to talking sheep. Okay, I am so excited to be here with Shelby, guys. We're going to try to stay on task as much as possible. At least talk about sheep some, maybe talk about other things. Yep. Ryan wants me to talk about IMOs, so
okay.
And I was listening to...
I wore the right shirt.
I know. So this is Shelby. How do you say your last name?
Beyer,
okay. And she lives 30 minutes from us, so that's perfect. She does sheep and gardening.
And I'm about to do a quick run through of some things.
Yes. So we're just going to dive on in. But first, I have an outline too. I'm terrible about this. Getting into structure. Make sure that you guys are on the email list that I have in the notes below. That way you can get emails of upcoming episodes. And like if I email you and let you know that Shelby's coming, you can ask questions prior to. So do that. But, okay, go ahead and do your intro.
Well, that would be so fun to answer people's questions.
I know. That would
Instead
be
of just free form, let me word vomit on everyone. Here's what I think you need to know. Well, I'm Shelby Beyer. I'm from Cheney, Kansas. We are in Cheney, Kansas recording right now at my kitchen table / art room / food preservation room /
you have 2 kids?
Yes.
Okay.
So my husband, Brad, and I are farmers, and we have 2 kids. Bodie is 6 and Kimber is 10. They're my little farmers. Born and raised in Cheney. I left for 4 years to go to college, became a nurse, and I came back. I was raised in 4-H. I didn't have any sheep. I trained and showed dogs, rabbits, and pigs. So I had friends with sheep. At the state or at the county fair, we'd show round robin, and I was around them. But I never ate lamb that I remember until I was in college at fancy restaurant or something like that. Yeah. And so my family, I come from a family of farmers. Mm-hmm. So technically I'm 5th or 6th generation farmer, but kind of not really. When my dad was a teenager, his parents closed up shop in southwest Kansas and moved here to town and got jobs in the aircraft industry in Wichita. So their farm ended. My dad worked on his own farm, and then when I was young, they bought property and he started agricultural experiences again.
Yeah.
So I'm no longer a part, but I don't own cattle in the family farm anymore. My family raises a herd of Gelbvieh Angus cattle. It's a cow-calf operation. They also sell at the sale barn, but I also sell direct to consumer.
Okay.
So butcher beef, all that. Brad and I decided to exit that family farm in a moment where we had a lot on our plate, and we wanted to focus our time and our monies towards Anchor Farm. So before Anchor Farm, I was working as a nurse. I became a mom, and life changed.
Yes, I understand.
And I started telling my husband, I don't think I want to be a nurse anymore. And he was like, yeah, you're nuts. And I said, okay, what's new? And I said, I think I want to be a farmer. And so I also started drinking raw milk at the time, became a customer at Jayco Farm, became a friend of Jayco Farm, started helping butcher chickens there at Jayco Farm. And one day they were like, you want a part-time job? And I said, oh yeah, I do. And so that was my first real hands-on experience with sheep.
Okay.
A couple of my favorite memories is when I started working there, it was around about that time. This was in 2016. We were lambing. And at Jayco, they run their sheep with cows and chickens all on pasture. And mostly they use just polywire reels for paddock shifts. But in lambing season, they would use electrified netting to create a fold, and they put the lambs and the sheep in at night and then let them back out as an added layer of protection.
Okay.
And I remember Daniel taking me out there and showing me the ropes. Like, I'd never touched a reel. I understood how it worked because I grew up fishing, and it's basically the same thing, right? As a reel on a pole. But and then showing me the electrified netting, and like It was one of my favorite memories out in the pasture was when he was showing me talking me through the logistics and the mindset behind putting the sheep in the fold to protect them, and comparing it to like biblical things like in the Bible, Jesus talks about taking care of his sheep and protecting them from the wolves, and that's what we're doing here. One of my other favorite memories was when I was working at Jayco. I was also working at Hutchinson Hospital part-time, and I worked in critical care ICU, but I also supervised like the staff of the hospital. And Daniel and Robin knew it, and Daniel sent me off in the pasture one day, and he was at the barn working on the roof. So he could see what I was doing, and I was down the lane, and I was trying to move the sheep.
Yeah.
I think it was probably the first time, or one of the first times by myself, and I was struggling. Like, I grew up in cow culture and in cow mindset. And transitioning into sheep was a whole different ball game. You have to think differently. Yeah. They act differently. They're completely different animals. And so I was trying to get them to move, and I don't know if he was on the roof laughing at me or frustrated or both, because I think I would have laughed at me. But he called me on my phone. He said, "Shelby, use your bossy nurse voice and tell them what to do." And so I did. And I got them moved down the lane into the next paddock, and it worked great.
How many were there? Like,
oh gosh. I don't know.
It's a pain either way. I mean, if there's only a few, then they don't know what to do.
It was a herd.
More. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Probably 30 or 40.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was just the sheep, not the cows. Okay. And I learned a lot there.
Yeah.
Around about the same time when I was telling my husband and my father that I wanted to be a farmer, sheep weren't really on my radar.
Yeah.
Livestock wasn't on my radar because of some bad experiences I had with cattle, and because I knew that if I wanted to be a cattle woman, I would have to borrow quite a bit of money for the infrastructure needed, and that kind of turned me off. And so I was telling my dad and my husband, I think I want to build a greenhouse. And my dad was like, maybe you should work in a greenhouse before you build one.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, okay. And so the short of the long is that I went and got a job for MG Honor Farms, which is just south of town here in Cheney. He has 2 greenhouses, and I helped Clint. His name's Clint Brower. A lot of people know him from a company called Greenfield Robotics. And I helped him manage 2 greenhouses and outdoor crop production, and I also ended up managing his sheep. So before I officially worked for Clint, I was pregnant with my son, and we were trying to work out kind of a partnership where I would manage the sheep for him. And ultimately I said no, because he was going to be buying pregnant ewes from Jayco, and I was also pregnant. And we were moving out of our house into a rental to save money for our farm, and it was all happening at the same time. And I finally called him and said, I'm sorry, but I can't manage your flock and have a baby all in the same, couple week time period. And so then I ended up getting a job for him for the greenhouse and then helping him with the sheep.
Okay.
And so that was experience number 2. That was in March of 2018 when I started working for him. And he started off with reels and no hard wire perimeter fence. And that didn't work well.
Yeah.
And so then he moved to netting.
Okay.
And I've drug a lot of netting around and cussed a lot of netting and untangled a lot of netting, and had some real come to Jesus talks out in the pasture with some netting.
Yeah.
And then we ended up transitioning his sheep into a prototype for a movable sheep grazing robot. Cool. Clint says that it's a failure. It was a failure because it needs to be moved constantly in order for it to work right. And then the second reason is it's hard to get a ground on the prototype he had. Okay. And so he still has sheep out there, but lots of memories.
Yeah, cool.
In 2020, my job at MG Honor Farm ended. I went back to work at Jayco part-time.
Okay.
More sheep stuff.
Yeah.
So in 2018, we started the process of buying the land that would become Acre Farm.
Okay.
And we bought 20 acres from my dad. He purchased the land before us. I think for 2 years, 2 growing seasons he had it. When he bought it, it was full tillage, full chemistry, monocrops, and fallow for probably 60, if not longer, years before him.
Really?
He put it into no-till with covers, mostly for forage production for the herd of cows. I don't know if he harvested any hay or grain off of it, but that was what he did, and then we took it over. We purchased that land in 2019. In 21, I officially retired from nursing. I was working part-time at Jayco, and I had got a part-time research job for a company called Prairie Food, doing research looking at soil health, ecological systems, stuff like that. So that kind of brings us up to, 2020. When we bought the acreage, which I'll show you when we're out there, the only thing that was on it was the cover crop my dad had planted and like 20 hedge trees.
Lovely.
So,
Hedge, if anything else.
I love them. They're, yeah. But I mean, for their purpose. Yeah. So our first project was plant cover crop, build fence, get electricity, get water. So we've done all that.
Okay.
We built a perimeter fence. My husband, he spearheaded that. He's the engineer here.
Okay.
Like when you come out to the farm with me, if it required tools and hard work, he was in charge of it, and I showed up and said, please tell me what to do, and I'm going to try my best not to tell you you're wrong.
Yeah. Did you guys use NRCS kind of stuff?
So we did.
Okay.
Not for the fencing.
Okay.
Not for the well, which I should have, but I didn't. And not for the electricity.
Do you have water lines running around? Okay.
Not into the pasture, but that's that's on one of our critical farm upgrades that's coming in the near future when we have the money to invest in infrastructure. So I got an NRCS EQIP grant for the first high tunnel. It's 3,000 square foot, and I am naive. After after we finished building the first high tunnel, my NRCS agent called me and he's like, so between the drought and COVID, the funding has changed and it has increased a lot because the EQIP grant pays on square footage. And he goes, and you're about to exit your beginning farmer stage because of the cattle business we were in. I have been, according to taxes, I've been, filing Schedule F taxes for almost 10 years at that point. He goes, if you want another high tunnel, you should probably think about applying. So I did. I was not ready.
Yeah.
But second high tunnel, basically the same as the first. So we have 6,000 square foot of high tunnel. We have 950 crowns of asparagus. That was one of the first crops we planted on the farm. I was like, oh, I want asparagus. And then I was like, oh, asparagus is expensive when you only buy 20 or 30 crowns, but if you buy 1,000, they're pretty cheap. And so I got all my friends together who wanted asparagus, and we bought a whole bunch of asparagus, and then I invited my friends out with beer and pizza, and we planted it all in 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Asparagus coming out your ears forever. So inside the high tunnels,
Yeah.
Oh
No, not inside, outside.
No, outside, okay.
Yeah. I'll show you all that when we go. So yeah, I am now 100% employed by myself.
Yeah.
No more research, no more Jayco, except for I go help butcher chickens and stuff because I love to butcher chickens with them. It's fun when you have the right setup, and they do.
Yeah, I've never done that with the right setup.
Yeah. And so in the summer of 21, I had received 5 sheep from Clint. When I was working for him in 18, 19, and early 20, he had told me, he's like, this is a bonus. He goes, when you're ready, 5 of these sheep are yours, and only when you're ready. And so I went and got the sheep from him, and they quickly went to the sale barn because they didn't respect my fence.
Okay.
And they had a parasite load that was higher than I wanted to deal with. I knew I had lots of tools in my toolbox to treat them, and I didn't want to. I took them to the sale barn and pocketed the money. Luckily, the market was great at the time for just taking sheep to the sale barn, and I think it was August. Okay. And we turned around and we bought 20 ewes from Jayco.
Okay.
And that's when the fun began.
Yeah. That's what we have, I think, 7 from Jayco in best decision.
Oh,
I need to interview him on the podcast, or his dad. I don't know which one
Yeah.
of them did the genetics on, or like kind of the breed up on their sheep. But whatever they did it right. Because are they mostly Katahdin, or are they?
That's a question for them, and that's
Okay.
an answer I should know.
No, you're fine. It doesn't matter, like, if they're good sheep.
They're diverse.
Yeah.
They're healthy. And for the most part, they run their sheep on 1 or 2 poly wires,
Yeah, okay.
which is amazing. Netting is great.
Yeah.
I don't care for it unless I have to use it. And I will use it if I have to. But being able to run sheep on 1 or 2 reels
Yeah.
is a game changer for us. And people message me like, how can you do that? And I was like, well, it's a complex thing, but that's what we do.
Have you ever pushed them too far then, and like had them jump out,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you have to retrain them? Is that?
Yep.
Okay, I'm like, well,
Yep.
maybe that's just me, that I do it bad, and then. You
And
know.
I shouldn't say we run them on 1 line. We almost always have 2.
Yeah.
In the spring, when the babies are learning the fence, we usually have 4 lines, which is 2 reels. We have our paddock set up that a down and back is 1 reel, and so
Okay.
it's 2 reels, and we put them,
Okay.
and so that animal learns when its nose hits the fence
Yeah.
that, hey, we mean business. But yeah, we do have sheep get out. If we push them too far, they get out. And then we retrain them. And the biggest thing for me with sheep, and part of it is healing the trauma from working cows like a lunatic.
Yes, I was just thinking that the other day.
Like, and you know, learning from Temple Grandin and so many other people, like, the animals are going to mirror what you're doing and what you're feeling. So if you're anxious and worked up and yelling and screaming and doing crazy things, the animals are probably going to do the same thing as well.
Yeah.
And so learning that, and you know, having daily, sometimes twice a day contact with a sheep, they know my name.
Yeah.
They know my voice. They know the sound of the ranger. I pull on the driveway and I, you know, boop boop, and they're like, "Oh, mom's here," and 9 times out of 10 they will follow me. Like when you're there today, you're a new person, they're not going to follow me. Or I doubt they'll follow me. I'm going to have to push them into the next paddock. But that's okay. And so more than anything, like for me, it's try and be calm, try and be patient. Tell the sheep, show the sheep what you want them to do. And you're going to save so much time from chasing sheep. Because I've chased sheep all over the countryside. Not mine, thank God.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is I cull really hard. If I have an animal that's not respecting the fence, you're out.
Will you put her in a pen, or will you sell her right then? Like, take her to...
It depends on how good of a mom she is.
Yeah.
If she births without my assistance, accepts all of her babies, does not have difficulty with parasites, I will put more work in her to train her back to the fence, but I will only do it once or twice. Other than that, you're either going to the cell barn or you're going to freezer camp, or I'm going to sell you to another producer who has a different fence set up. Like, end of story.
Yeah.
So I don't...
Do you have hardwire fence around then? Or is
so
it...
at our farm, yes, there is high tensile woven wire perimeter fence around the entire acre, 20 acres. And that was a big investment, and we are very, very grateful that we did that. Especially early on, because even though the sheep aren't there now, like for example, yesterday the power flashed here, and I get an immediate text on my phone, the power is off at the farm. I'm like, oh, well, currently I have 4 pigs on pasture, and the only thing keeping them in is I think 3 lines of polywire. And they're trained, and I trust them, but at the same time, you never know. There's dogs in the area, but I'm also in my brain, I'm like, oh shoot, our fence, like the main fence that opens and closes our perimeter woven wire fence is open. And I mean, that's the fail-safe. And so I immediately go out there and check on them, they're good, and close the fence, because that's the fail-safe. And I mean, if they get out, they get the greenhouse, that's a problem. If they get out and go where they want, that could be a problem. But I'm not going to be chasing them down the countryside. So,
how far is your farm away from here, like minutes-wise? Or I mean, even miles?
Well, I think it's 3 blocks to Lake Road, 1.5 miles down Lake Road to the north, mile to the west. So maybe 3 miles. Like if you're hustling, 4 minutes.
But I cannot imagine when we have our sheep, even on the north end or like on the west, if I'm not like, I can't see them from like walking out the house, I kind of get a little anxious. I can't imagine especially with your sheep, They're on your dad's place right now? So
They're on a friend's place.
Okay.
So, and there is no perimeter fence.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, we put up a single wire of not high tensile, just regular electric fence wire, so we're hot around the perimeter, but and so we can come off of it, but no, there's no perimeter fence.
Yeah. Goodness.
Well, it's kind of ballsy.
Yeah, well, and you just got to trust your sheep, trust your management kind of a thing. Or like, they got to know what they're doing.
We don't push them really hard right now.
Yeah.
So, for many reasons. A, because of fencing logistics. B, because they're getting pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the time to push them. So, yeah.
I kept coming up with all sorts of different questions for you. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. So that perimeter fence was a suggestion to me by Ken King at Jayco, and I'm so glad I listened.
The hard wire around?
Yeah, the hard wire perimeter fence at the home place.
I see.
Just because, I mean, for the simple fact that we don't live there yet. Someday we will. And no, it's not going to keep out a starving coyote.
Yeah.
But it is a deterrent.
Yeah.
And it does give us a sense of peace.
Yeah, definitely.
I would tell anybody who's looking to start a small farm or a homestead, if they can budget for it, like that's not something we at all regret. So, so fence, greenhouses, sheep. So currently we have 19 ewes that are 2 years or older.
Okay.
We have 15 ewe lambs, 13 wether lambs. We banned them because we are not ready to run 2 separate herds. We purchased 2 rams from Gail Fuller and Lynette Miller.
Perfect, cool.
They're out there. A little romance in the pasture. And we have a guardian donkey.
Yes.
Her name is Mage.
That's what I want to talk about.
She's magical.
Yeah. I am, well, okay, first question about your rams. Where do you keep your rams then? Do you just separate them to a different farm? You know, since you have a small flock, how do you manage rams?
This is our 3rd breeding season. The first one I purchased a ram from Jayco.
Okay.
And then he went to freezer camp after he serviced my flock.
Okay.
And we ate him.
Yeah.
And then last year and this year, we went and purchased our rams from Gail Fuller and Lynette Miller. Again, paying attention to where they were coming from, how they were managed, and their health, and the mindset of the people they were coming from also is a big seller for me. But, and they will service the flock, and then they will go to freezer camp and feed our family this winter.
Okay.
Someday we might keep our own rams, but right now we're not. One flock is enough.
Yeah. Are you buying them?
Yeah, I buy them.
Well, because you go invest in a ram, you would think that it would be like a higher ticket kind of a thing. Are you buying like an older ram that they're, no? Okay.
Nope.
And then meat quality.
Fantastic.
You're just, okay.
Delicious.
Well, that kicks me in the pants. I should have butchered a ram that we sent to the sale bar and got like $150 for. I should have just processed. Okay. So there's no taste, like.
They're yearling rams.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
but you can't taste like. Okay. Interesting.
They're delicious.
Okay, cool.
I haven't noticed. So that's the other thing is I didn't grow up eating conventional lamb or mutton.
Yeah.
I'd had it at a fancy restaurant here and there, but my first real experience eating lamb was when I became a customer of Jayco's.
Okay.
And I grew up hunting and fishing. I like flavor in my food.
Yeah.
I understand the nutritional importance about diversity in diets and how that translates into healthy food, be it plant or animal matter. And then that translates into healthy people. Yeah. And when I transitioned my family from, my family being my husband and my children, from grain finished Angus to all grass, it created some ripples. My husband wasn't ready for that amount of flavor. He loves it now.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same with lamb. He'd never had lamb, so I guess it's not the same, but he didn't have a previous not so great experience with lamb or mutton.
Yeah.
And we started eating lamb, and it's just fantastic.
Okay. See, I've always heard people talk about mutton, but I've never had it before. And I've never had lamb other than ours. I guess maybe once at a restaurant. But.
Yeah. Have you read anything about, in World War II, they sent the troops tinned mutton? Put that on your list.
Okay.
And as a general rule, Americans are not used to meat having flavor.
Yeah, okay.
And they call it gamey or whatever, and like everything is diverse and should be different for a reason. But from what I understand, in World War II, they sent the troops, how do you feed the troops overseas, right? Has to be portable, has to be shelf stable. So they canned mutton.
Okay.
Well, pair that food stuff, which probably isn't the best.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think, ooh, yay, lamb, and then I can it, it's still better, but not. Yeah. It's not a lamb chop that you thawed from the freezer and grilled on the grill. It's tinned mutton. But you pair that with men living through hell. Mm-hmm. And the culture around lamb changed. Yeah. And that's probably one of many factors. Mm-hmm. But like when I kind of started digging into why my customers or why the people I was, presenting the opportunity to buy food from me, they were like, ugh, lamb, ugh, mutton. And I'm like, I double dog dare you to try this lamb chop, cook it with this recipe, or try this lamb burger, cook it with this recipe, and you will, I will bet you $50.
Yeah, you'll come
back.
And
9 times out of 10, it's a positive. Uh-huh. I mean, they're like, I didn't know. And I'm like, thanks for giving it a try. Yeah. Yeah. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. There's a huge educational part to your customers,
as there should be.
Yeah. Very true.
We should be educating our customers. Full transparency, what we do, why we do it, and our customers should be educating us what they want and why they want it.
Okay, that's good.
That's
Sheep friends, I wanted to take a moment to tell you that if you are looking for some educational books that are relevant to sheep farmers, I will have a few linked in the notes below. In this interview, Shelby mentions Natural Sheep Care by Pat Colby, which I definitely need to look into, but Ryan and I have some favorites that are Livestock Protection Dogs, and then also the book of Healthy Land, Happy Families, and Profitable Businesses. So go check those out. If you purchase them through the link below, it goes to help support the podcast.
With the lamb, we sell butcher lamb. We sell wholesale and retail butcher cuts, individual cuts.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So my family's, the Horizon Farm Meat Company, I haven't made a website for us yet. And so Anchor Farm has a page on the Horizon Farm Meat Company page where people can order lamb online, or they can text me or email me or whatever for retail or individual cuts. And then I have a list for individual butcher lambs. Okay. We sell live animals for breeding or for home processing. Went and I had a customer who wanted lamb, and she wanted it before Thanksgiving. And she goes, I'll take a butcher lamb in December or January, but I want to come get one. She goes, we hunt. Yeah. She goes, is it much different than processing a deer? I said, no, it's not. It's almost the same. Yeah. If you can do deer, you can do lamb at home. And she goes, okay, well, come. I want to come buy a wether. I said, okay. So she took a wether home on Saturday, and
there you go.
I haven't heard back from her. I'm excited, but
yeah, cool.
I've sold some bred ewes or open ewes, and occasionally we take them to the sale barn when they tick me off and aren't respecting the fence, and I'm like, I'm done with you. Yeah. So that's the lamb business in a nutshell.
Cool.
And ultimately, the lamb business didn't start out as, it sounds terrible, this is the night, being a naive farmer. I knew I needed animal impact to heal the soil on my farm, and that's where that started. And I knew that we as a family liked to eat lamb. Yeah. And the evolution from I need animal impact and I like to eat lamb, and I don't want cattle or the infrastructure that comes with them, and I don't want to be trampled by cows, because that's happened to me, and I'm not ready to deal with cattle yet. Yeah. That's where it all started.
Okay.
And then it has blossomed into, holy cow, my friend lives on the edge of town, and she has 9 acres, and they've been mowing it for years. Perfect. She was like, why don't we graze some sheep? I was like, okay, you ready? She has electricity and water, let's go. It's a mutual benefit. She knows that we're making healthy land for her for the future, regardless of whatever she wants to do with it. And she's a customer for lamb. She loves the way it tastes. They love seeing the animals roaming around their house.
I bet.
And then that was last year, and then we went back again, and then, you know, a quarter mile down the road from there, another friend was like, I kept telling him, he's like, my grass is just not like it used to be. And I was like, well, stop mowing it, stop set stocking it with your cow, your horse, and your donkey, and here's some simple things you can do. And then he was like, well, are you going to bring the sheep out to graze? And I was like, well, what are you going to charge me? He's like, just please come do it.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, here we are. And that's blossomed into other opportunities.
Cool.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. How do you, from farm to farm, are they just used to a trailer, loading up in a trailer? Do you have a portable kind of little corral thing that you guys do? Okay, cool.
We, before we ever bought sheep, we bought a working chute and a set of panels, which I'll show you, from Jaco Farm. Okay. They had made it, and then they decided to upgrade theirs.
Did he make his new one too?
Yes.
Okay.
You've seen it?
I probably.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, the chute isn't at where the pasture where the sheep are right now. Okay. But the panels are, because we sorted off 2 and took them to freezer camp, and then the one that we sold. And next time we do it, we'll load the chute up with a skid steer, put it on a trailer, and take it over there, because that got a little western.
Yeah.
In my back, and that's hard on your back.
Yeah.
We got it done, but I don't like to put my sheep through that kind of stress.
Yeah.
And we did stress them a little more than I wanted to that day.
Yeah. We were working sheep the last time, and I went to go grab one of our bigger ones. She threw her head back. I thought I broke my nose.
My gosh,
I was like, oh
stinks.
my
gosh. I hate that. Or
you can't do this.
If they hit your chin and you like jar your teeth together. I'm like, what? Oh yeah, it's.
Then like instantly right after you do it, you're like, that wasn't worth it. Why did I do that?
So when we bought the panels and the sheep chute setup, we had sold our house out at the lake, and we were living in little rental houses, and we didn't have a place to put it yet. We hadn't bought the acreage yet, but we knew it was coming. And my dad was like, you're nuts. You don't even own sheep yet. You spent, a couple $1,000s. And I was like, trust me.
Yeah.
And so we stored it at my dad's house, and then having a good fence set up and having a good working facility, even if you plan, like I'm pretty much hands off, but the 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes more, but the 2 or 3 times a year that I actually send the sheep through the chute to count, to check their FOMACHA score, to, I had one who I was watching her bag, and she had obvious mastitis, and I was like, Brad's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, she's not tame enough for me to just touch her. So I need to put her in the chute so I can see if she's plugged, feel how hot she is, take her temperature, do all that.
Yeah.
And just that alone is a back saver and a time saver.
Yeah.
So, and then we use the panels when we brought the sheep or the pigs home from Jaco about a month ago, like they had been on pasture with reels, but we put them inside the hard panels for a week, and then we moved them to another paddock with hard panels and then the electric fence inside, and then we moved them to just only electric fence. So yeah, it's great.
Cool. Are you still going to do the farmer's market then?
So we don't do farmer's market right now.
Okay. Well, selling lamb and stuff.
I sell my produce at a boutique here on Main Street in Cheney, which I'm going to take you and show you, because I'm proud of it, and it's growing. Cool. I sell my produce in Jaco Farm Store and Borntrager Dairy Farm Store. Okay. I sell a lot of produce to a food bank in Wichita called Dear Neighbor Ministries. None of those places have my meat in them yet, but we are actively planning on putting lamb retail cuts in the boutique on Main Street in Cheney. And then the rest of this lamb either goes through the Horizon Farms Meat Company, so my family's meat company, our page on that website, or just word of mouth. I have, endless lists.
Yeah. People interested or want to try it. Yeah.
We are actively planning on going to farmers market in Wichita in the spring with produce, lamb, and pork.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Are you excited?
Yeah. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I love the idea of farmers markets just from the social aspect. I feel like farmers, you're isolated, and then going to and you do a really good job of that, but connecting with your customers,
So that's what I miss the most about being a nurse is people.
Yeah.
It's not the medical system. It's not sick people. It's not helping people get better. It's just people.
Yeah.
I'm a people person. I'm pretty extroverted. I love to hear people's stories. I love to share. I love to receive. And I'm excited for farmers market.
Cool. Awesome. Fun stuff.
So, what else do you need to know?
Talk about your management with vaccination. I want everybody to get a broad of okay, well, this person does this does this. Maybe I'll take a little bit of that. So do you guys?
We don't use needles.
You don't at all. Not for CDNT or anything. No.
Nothing.
Okay. And then you check FAMACHA score. Is that just what?
Monitoring.
Okay.
Monitoring.
At certain times to stressful points of ewe lambs or ewes?
I watch them closely all the time.
Okay.
And I'm constantly taking notes and putting it into my spreadsheet.
Okay.
We almost always run. So if there's a sheep that's down, needs my assistance in any way, and I'm up close and I have my hands on her, I'm always looking at a FAMACHA score.
Okay.
Always. I'm also looking at, looking for dirty butts, looking for runny noses, looking for goop in the eyes, looking for bottle jaw, looking at all the things. That's one of my skills from being a nurse is observation, assessment, and pulling that into my work as a rancher, farmer, whatever you want to call it. We almost always run the sheep through after lambing.
Okay.
In that week or two after we're done lambing.
Okay.
To get counts, to make sure everybody's tagged, and I check a FAMACHA then. And then we wait to band.
Mm-hmm.
And so we run them through again, and I'm checking that then. And then around about this time of year, we run them through the chute to check everybody again, estimate weights, or load a few in the trailer to see where our butcher lambs are at. Last year, we pushed our lambing date back a couple weeks, and then we pushed our butcher date back a couple weeks. Well, we were in drought. Our forage was different. And this year, we replicated that. And, I didn't think we would be ready to send a couple to butcher, to freezer camp, until at least the 1st of December. But, I've been watching them, and I'm like, wow, they have grown. And so my husband was like, you sure? I was like, I think we should pull a few out and weigh them. And so we did, and they're there, they're ready.
Yeah.
But again, the forage availability, growth, context, everything is different this year than last year.
Yeah.
But so for sure 3 times we take them through the chute and check.
Okay.
And I am kind of ruthless when it comes to culling.
Yeah.
So no, I've never given a sheep a vaccination.
Okay.
I shouldn't have said no needles because I have given sheep fluid boluses, for hydration.
Okay.
But yep.
Cool.
We.
I'm thinking, I've never even thought of doing that. And I'm like, oh wait, you're a nurse.
Yes, I'm a nurse.
Have you drawn blood on them and everything?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I need to have you out when I need to do that, and you'll just.
I am
just
not a
right
vet.
here.
You can't hire me. I don't even know if that's legal. I'm sure there might be people out there that are like, oh my God, she's crazy. Well, yeah, I am. But
same principles apply.
The same principles apply. If an animal is sick, first of all, is it warm?
Yeah.
If it's not warm, warm it up. Is it hydrated? If it's not hydrated, hydrate it.
Yeah.
And then freak out if that doesn't help.
Yeah.
Rotational grazing is part of our deworming program, right? Keep them off the eggs, right? Keep them off their own poop. I operate under the ideology of all animals have parasites,
Yes.
even humans,
Yeah.
at some point in their life. And so we don't go back. There's a gray area here, but we don't go back over where they've grazed.
Okay.
For many reasons, soil health, letting the plants recover, but also because we don't want them back on their parasites.
Yeah.
That window of time gets even larger if it's wet outside. Because those eggs, parasites, whatever, like the scientific names are escaping me right now, but they're more viable if they're moist.
Yeah.
And so rotational grazing, a very, very ruthless and active culling.
Yeah.
I have no problem with nature culling an animal for me, but ideally, I would prefer to remove it from the flock, remove it from our rotation, remove it from our breeding stock before nature does that.
Yeah.
For bottom line, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're not going to hack it here and I have to baby you, you're out. If you can't have babies on your own without my assistance and care for them, you're out. If you can't respect the fence, you're out. If you're mean, you're out. Like, you just got voted off the island.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard for my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, they are our pets. Yes, we love them. Yes, we thank them for their service and we eat them on a beautiful dinner someday, but they're learning.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you try to push like twinning on your ewes? Like,
I don't push anything.
yeah. Okay.
I like
Cull
twins.
for twins. Yeah.
I don't cull
Yeah.
for twins. I don't. Now, if an animal has twins or triplets and she doesn't accept them and take care of them, then that's a kind of a negative mark. Like, it's one thing I will consider if I want to keep her or not for the next breeding season.
Yeah.
This past year, I don't have my numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty sure we had 3, if not 4 sets of trips.
Really? Oh my gosh.
And the moms took care of them all.
Really? Wow.
And I had 2 runty ones. They caught up.
Really? Cool.
Yeah. And we're prepared and ready to have bottle lambs. It, it happens, but it has not happened for us yet. I'll probably just put my foot in my mouth for this year.
Oh,
There's going to be lambs running around everywhere.
Yeah, especially since you live here. I was just telling somebody the other day on one of my last podcasts, I was like, I think I'm just going to have to sell my bottle lambs. Like, family and everything. I'm like, I love you. You're cute for like the first week.
Oh, yeah.
But then I can't take care of you.
And that's how I coach my family, too. Like, my husband and my kid, we want a bottle lamb. And I said, just so you know, if we have a bottle lamb, I will take care of it as long as it takes to sell it.
Yeah.
Or give it away. Yeah. Because I don't, that's not where I want to invest my time. Yeah. I was like, but if you want to take responsibility for it, you can. And that means getting up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they want to, that's fine. But let's, full transparency, family, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. Love it. That's how I am too.
I use Pat Colby's methods.
Okay.
Healthy sheep naturally. It's controversial.
Okay. Maybe.
Shocker.
Yeah, exactly.
I do use some copper.
Okay.
Everybody's like, copper kill your sheep. Well, I worked at Jayco and they used copper for I don't know how long, quite some time. Their mineral comes from the fur trail company. And I've seen no issues as long as you do it right.
Yeah.
I mean, the poison is in the dose.
Yeah.
So,
so what mineral program do you guys run?
So we use Redmond's Real Salt.
Okay.
We get that from Jayco. We get everything from Jayco.
Okay.
I have bought some salt from the Kansas, from up at Hutch Salt. But we use Redmond salt, free choice. We use a grazer's mix.
Okay.
From Fertrell, also from Jayco, free choice. Okay. And kelp.
Okay.
Sea kelp. There are some other things we give. There's some conditioner, bentonite clay, baking soda, especially if I'm transitioning the sheep from one forage to a completely different type.
Yes.
That can be distressing on anybody's gut.
Yeah.
Anybody, human or ruminant. But I mean, there are some things, but the regular is free choice salt, free choice grazer's mix, and free choice kelp.
Okay. What is the kelp? I've never.
Iodine.
Oh, okay.
And also, kelp has tons of trace mineral nutrients and all kinds of stuff.
Where do you source that from?
Jayco. Yep.
Interesting. Okay, we'll have to look into that.
But yeah, that's the basics.
Okay.
That Pat Colby, there's a PDF. I could send it to you. Well, she has a book, and then there's like a PDF that has just like remedies and things you can do yourself. Okay. And I use quite a few of those things. Like I had a ewe that I pushed her too hard.
Yeah.
She had gotten like a stick or something. It was a mare's tail stem. It was stuck between her two toes or hooves or whatever you want to call it. And I've been watching her for a day or two, and it was there, and she wasn't limping. And then the next day, she was obviously limping, and she couldn't get it out. And so I went to catch her. I pushed her too hard, and one of her nails tore loose, but not all the way off. And she was an amazing ewe, just amazing. And so I got her caught. I assessed the situation, and I cut it off. There was no way it was going to heal without me immobilizing her.
Yeah.
And then it was prevention. Like, how do you prevent infection? Well, I did iodine dips, checked it. I wrapped it for a few days, checked it, did more iodine dips, and then I supplemented her with vitamin C and vitamin... I have to look back at my notes. Vitamin C. I would give her rectal vitamins or oral vitamin C.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think Lynette had told me about that book. I think I even have it. I just need to read it or look through it.
So, with the perimeter fence we have, we've never felt that we needed guardian animals.
Okay.
Well, then we quickly outgrew 20 acres.
Yeah.
And I've attended several field days or educational series, webinars about guardian dogs, and someday we will have guardian dogs. It's not a financial or time investment that I'm ready for yet. Mm-hmm. It's definitely on the horizon. For a while, we had a mini horse that was my friend's. There you go. His name was Clyde. He's a pet. He was a pet. When they had him as a pet, he had a companion sheep. The sheep died. He wouldn't stay in. Oh, okay. So he came to live at our place.
Yeah.
And then he died, unfortunately, which you'll see a cross on my compost pile because that's where Clyde was buried.
Yeah.
But, and I think every animal farmer should have a compost pile.
Yeah.
Like when Clyde died, we were in the middle of D3, D4 drought, and the ground was rock solid.
Yeah.
And it never happens at the opportune time. It happened at 5 p.m. on a Friday when we had 20 million other things going, and it was okay. Well, go get go borrow a tractor or skid steer from brother, brother-in-law, dad, somebody. We'll just put them in the compost pile.
There you go.
So
yeah, I need to see that. Like you're saying, it happens at the worst time, and then it's like, okay, am I going to harvest this meat or just go put it and let nature do its thing?
Yeah. So now Clyde and a couple of sheep that got culled by nature, and they're now nurturing the soil at my farm.
Joel Salatin, my husband says that Joel Salatin talks about that. I don't know what it looks like. It's just, is it just a mound that
I'll show it to you.
Turn over? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Composting is a pain in the rear, and I don't plan to compost in the future because I have pigs now and I do IMOS.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but the donkey. So, we were going into this spring, and I kind of started telling Brad, my husband, I said, I think we need to get a donkey. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, a guardian donkey, not a mini donkey, not a mini horse. I was like, just like roll that around in your head, see how you feel about it. And so I started looking for donkeys.
Yeah.
And the donkey market is wild. You can either find a donkey for $50, or you can find a donkey for $1,500.
Really? Okay.
And I was like, well, the budget's $200.
Yeah.
And so I started texting people, and an old friend of mine from college that lives in Miami, Oklahoma, he's done like some mule skinning and packing on animals and hunting and like that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm on the hunt for a donkey. And so, I would like it to be a Jenny. I'd like to be under or under a year of age.
Okay.
And this is my proposed budget. And we found one. So we went down and we picked her up, brought her back, and I didn't have her wormed because I have dung beetles on my farm. And so I tested her stool for parasites. She had a moderate parasite load. Of course, they recommend give her XYZ. And I was like, This was going into, the hottest heat indexes of the summer. And she spent a month with the sheep on the pasture, and then I moved them into a grazing situation where the forage was taller than the sheep.
Okay. And
it was different. And so in that situation, the sheep don't drink as much water as the donkey does. The donkey's black, the sheep are white. Well, dark brown. The donkey by this time, this is what I see. The donkey was bonded to the sheep by that time. And I think when we put the sheep into this tall forage, they didn't go to water as much.
Okay.
And so they were fine, but I went out to chore one morning and the donkey was down.
Oh no.
And I was like, shit. And and that was the day I had an appointment I had to go to in Wichita, and I quick gave her a bunch of oral boluses of water, put water out for her. Went to my appointment, came back, got a tent, a canopy, because it was the hottest day of the year. And I spent, I'm immediately calling the vet. We got her better, but she wouldn't get up. Oh. And so she was down for 3 days. Really? Well, 3.5 at least. We were prepared to put her down. And I was at work and, at the coffee shop where my produce was being sold at the time, and we were prepared that evening to euthanize her. And my husband's a big softie, and he loves this donkey so much. And he gets off work and he goes out there and he sends me a picture text message about 10 minutes before I was due to get off and euthanize a donkey. And he sends me a picture of him helping her stand.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, shit. Okay. And I cried. I was so happy.
Yeah.
And so we ended up standing her up, shoving her in a trailer, haulering her back to the home farm. And we did donkey physical therapy 3, 4, 5 times a day, helping her stand up, rolling her from side to side, gave her a dewormer, put her in a sacrifice pen, picked up poop for a long time, giving her some, extra minerals and vitamins, making sure she had the right forage. And I thought she was brain damaged for the longest time.
Really? Oh my goodness.
But it just took some time for her to get right. And she is just tame as could be, which she was not wild when we got her. But yeah, she's made the magical donkey. Yeah. And she does her job.
Yeah.
Like when we brought the rams home from Gail and Lynette's, she did not like them. Okay. And that was a big learning moment for us. Like next time if we bring new animals into the flock, we need to halter Mage and make sure she understands that this is what we want, and she's going to have to accept it. Because at first she wanted to kill him.
Really?
Yeah. And I think if we weren't there, it could have been bad. I don't know.
Huh.
But yeah.
Did you do any education prior to with a donkey, like learning about getting a donkey in a flock?
No. I've read some articles here and there. Yeah. I don't know if they've specifically talked about it in Stockman Grass Farmer, but just observation. Like, I'm not ready to get a cow. Yeah. We talked about the dogs. So, yeah, donkey was in the budget. And
well, they always say that like a donkey, it eats the same forage as sheep. So like, there's a benefit. Yeah. Dog food is our big expense with the dogs once they're there. But yeah, I didn't know if there was any other big things.
Well, I'm gonna drop the F-bomb, but. You fuck around and find out. Yeah, right. Don't do that with thousands of dollars of investment. Yeah. And that's one thing I talked to my husband through, because he was asking me questions. He's like, well, what do they eat? Can they eat the quality of forage that we feed the sheep? And I was like, well, from what I see, most people feed donkey like straw. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, our forage might be too much for the donkey. And, if we have to put a grazing muzzle on the donkey, it's not something I'm super excited about, but we haven't been there yet. Yeah. And I don't think will be. She seems to be thriving.
Yeah.
Right now, I need to get her feet trimmed. That's never happened yet, but
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing right now is I can tell her feet are a little sore, and I think it's because she just needs trimmed, not because of her diet.
Okay.
And because where they're at's sandy, and if you watch them, like she'll step down into a gopher hole and makes your ankles and your feet sore. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I read some things, and so we got a donkey.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, I just feel like people are so used to livestock guardian dogs. Like going with a donkey seems scary. I don't know. Scary in a way.
So sweet.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to put that picture. Is it your husband that's like kissing her? Yes. I was like, that is the sweetest thing.
That was when we were doing donkey PT.
Yeah.
And she was in quarantine because she'd got all the dewormers and antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, and
oh my goodness.
Yeah, she quickly became a $1,000 donkey.
Yeah. A loving pet.
And I don't regret it.
Yeah.
So,
who do you use? You have a vet around here for sheep, or do you just kind of do it yourself? You call Daniel? Yeah, okay.
So that was another blessing that came with Mage, and what happened with Mage when she got sick is I didn't have a vet. I mean, we've used Dr. Bernie here in town for our dogs and our cats, and I had taken her poop up there to get tested for parasites, but I hadn't officially set up vet care with him for the flock or for the donkey. My family, with their cattle business, they have a pretty good relationship with Heartland Veterinary, which is up by Andale.
Okay.
And so I'm sitting in the pasture crying while I'm worried about my donkey, worried about my kids, my husband, and the donkey. And I called and I was like, hey, this is Shelby, left him a message. This is Shelby Beyer. Is there any chance you could come see my donkey today? And she calls me back, and the receptionist does, and she goes, you're Ed Lawrence's daughter, aren't you? I was like, yeah. She's like, well, we're not taking equine patients, but Dr. Davis, which Shannon Davis, well, it's Dr. Barry now, but Shannon Davis is a young woman I used to babysit, and she's a newer vet there, and she lives like 3 miles down the road from me.
Yeah.
She goes, we're going to send her out when she's done today.
Okay.
And so Shannon came out and helped me and talked me through it. And so now we have a vet. And I'm excited because, I was very transparent with Shannon about this is what I'm doing, and I understand that you don't agree with some of the things. Yeah. But I need somebody who is going to be transparent with me, and I can be transparent back, and we can agree to disagree on some things. And I would love to have your advice, and I need you to understand I might not always take your advice. Yeah. And I'm a DIY girl. Yeah. And if you're comfortable with that, great. She goes, yeah, absolutely. And so,
is she okay with sheep then too, or
Okay. And I asked her. I was like, I've done reading, watched YouTube videos about FOMACHA scoring, done some work with Linda Long from Grace the Prairie, a couple workshops, and I'm not an expert. Yeah. I have some knowledge, and that can be dangerous. But I was like, Shannon, in the spring when we, work our ewes and our lambs through, I'm gonna make an appointment for her to come out. I was like, I want you to FOMACHA score with me. So for sure, from you, the expert, and she has done quite a bit of it, I think. So we're on the same page.
Cool. Okay.
And, she's like, I understand what you're doing. I understand from a healthy bottom line that you don't want the vet out here all the time. Yeah. And that's great. Yeah. She goes, but you have to see me once a year to keep my business. And you be my patient, and I'll be your doctor. And I said, great. Yeah. So I'm excited about that.
Cool.
Having to see that tool in my toolkit.
Yes, definitely. And then the mutual understanding of like you said, I might not take your advice all the time. Yeah. But I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Cool. I'll have to look and see if they're the ones that bought the Kingman vet clinic. Because I think it's Heartland. Mm-hmm. But we'll have to see. There was somebody in there that did sheep and goat. Or maybe they did more goats. But
I have to text Dr. Shannon. Anyway, but that's the donkey story.
Cool.
What else do you got for here at the table before we go out in the wind? So, IMOS.
Yes.
IMOs came into my life because Dr. Trish Jackson, do you know who that is? Mm-mm. So she's my old boss at Prairie Food. She now runs Harvest Hub in, is it Lyon County or Rice County? I'll have to look at that. You would be interested in her stuff. But I was doing research in the high tunnel, in the first high tunnel that we built for Prairie Food. I was also doing production. And one of the days that Trish came out to have a hands-on working day with me, I'd asked her, I was like, I have all these soil tests and I'm not an expert on soil tests. And I know that they're just a snapshot in time, but there's some things I don't understand that are happening, on paper. And I think it's tied to some things I'm seeing regarding pests and crop health and things like this. And so she sat down with me and we looked at my paper. And so the soil for the high tunnel is the same soil on the rest of the farm. There's two subtypes, Shellbarger sandy loam and Nalum complex. And I have no idea if I said that right. That's how I read it. And like the soil across the farm has improved constantly, even through drought. But when we built the high tunnel, we leveled a terrace. Okay. And then we did dirt work so that the frame of the greenhouse could be squarish. It's square. But also so that it would grade down. So if I accidentally flooded the greenhouse, which I have, it would run out.
Okay.
Well, we destroyed the dirt.
Yeah.
And I ended up, after we were done, and not only did we do all the dirt work, but we were in and out with skid steer and we compacted it. And so when I started growing, I tilled it, and I regret every minute of that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, it made it easier to form the beds and get started, but then I started going and I was comparing what was happening in the greenhouse to the asparagus patch or stuff out in the pasture, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah, yeah.
And so she's looking at it and she looks at me and she goes, Shelby, you know how to feed the system. You know how to put carbon in. You know how to do all the tenets of regenerative agriculture. You have the ability to control the water in here because you can water, like all the things. She goes, what you don't have is enough biology. And I was like, and I had already been using compost and worm castings. And I said, okay, well, do I just need to like amp up what I'm already doing? She goes, well, I think you should think about IMOs. And I was like, what is IMOs? She goes, well, you need to call Deanna Lazinski and find out. And I'll send you some podcasts. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, at the same time, I was working at Jayco. And Daniel and Robin were having a hard time sourcing some of their local feed inputs for their chicken and pig feed. And Robin had gotten a hold of Deanna Lazinski because they had a truckload, I think, of field peas. And I was like, oh, that's who Robin talked to. So I got Deanna's phone number, and this was like in May. Maybe June.
Is this with the drought and stuff too? Yes. Okay, I remember her sending out that email, Robin, and like, we need feed for the animals now.
This was in 21.
Okay.
And so I got Deanna's phone number from Robin, and I cold called her, and she answered. I was at work at Jayco, and I was like, I'm gonna have to take a break.
Yeah.
We were on the phone for at least 30 minutes. Yeah. Deanna's an infectious, bubbly, well-educated, well-spoken, kind, loving woman. And we talked, and I told her, this is what's going on. Somebody told me I need IMOs. And she told me all about it. And I was just like, why have I not heard of this? I was so excited. Yeah. And then she told me about the price, and the price is totally worth it. Mm. So Deanna and Kelly are small grains farmers and cereal grains farmers in North Dakota. I will send you some podcasts to link in your show notes that can cover their story. It's not my job to tell their story. However, you should listen to their story. Yeah. But they have gotten rid of all synthetic inputs. And that's a big deal.
I was going to say, I feel like I'm not in that space. I'm more in, like, obviously the livestock, and I don't realize how big of a deal that is.
It's a big deal. Yeah. Even if you're only looking at the bottom line, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so IMO stands for Indigenous Microorganism Solution. And it is a technology, a tool that they developed on their farm, and now they're sharing with other people. And so I will give you my affiliate link for their website. They have an IMOS educational series that farmers can learn and empower themselves.
Cool.
The educational series is like, I should know these numbers, $457 or $497, which is really a drop in the bucket for most farmers. And when you buy that educational series, you get access to the videos that tell you why and how and step-by-step process. And then after you become an IMOS member, you can buy a kit to build your brewer, which $250, $300 in parts and time to build a brewer. The large brewer brews 30 gallons. You can also buy a small brewer kit that brews 4 gallons.
Okay.
And then you buy food kits to brew the Indigenous microorganism solution. And so you're borrowing Indigenous microorganisms from your ecosystem on or around your farm, healthy things that are supposed to be there. You're feeding them over a series of 10 or so days. Then you're taking that soil that's been fed and has grown fungal components and been fed living water, and then you put it in your brewer with more living water, also full of biology that should be in our ecosystems. And then you're feeding it a specific set of foods that you buy from Kelly and Deanna, and then you use it to bioprime seed. I've also used the IMOS to spray foliarly.
Okay.
I've put it in a watering can inside dressed plants. I've used it to help plants when they were getting attacked by the grasshoppers we had this year. I've put it through my drip lines.
Cool.
Just get it on the ground.
Yeah.
For large-scale farmers, I really think that biopriming seed is the best way to go, because once you bioprime the seed, you've got a 2 or 3 week window to get it planted.
Oh, okay.
Because it is a living, live product. And you have to keep it aerated and all those things.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have the capital at the time to pay for the educational series. And I told Deanna that. And she's like, okay, well, when you're ready, let me know. So fast forward that year to Fuller Field School at Gail and Lynette's. And Deanna's the speaker. And
oh, really? How fun.
I was just like, oh my gosh. And it was just another sign, like, this is what you need. You need to do this. You got to figure out how to do it. And I mean, currently I have a long list of things that I want to do, right?
Exactly.
I want to do the HMI courses, which I'm actually in some of them right now. I want to go to Ranching for Profit. I want to invest in so many things on the farm, and it's just figuring out how and when and being patient.
Yes.
And so after field school, like, I really connected with both Kelly and Deanna. It was so fantastic to watch them tell their story to a group of people and watch the people's reaction, because it's like I knew some things, but I didn't know everything, and it was just fantastic. And so after field school, Deanna texted me and she said, actually, you're gonna have to edit out this little part.
You're good.
And at field school, there was conversation. She's like, are you ready yet? And I'm like, I have about $200 saved in a jar on the shelf. I don't know what I'm going to use it for yet, but IMOS is pretty high on the list. Oh man, we text a lot. She said, hey lady, it was great spending time with you at field school. Kelly and I are wondering if you might be willing to do some strategic research on IMOS in exchange for the video series in your starter kit. I was in the pasture moving sheep, and I was like, I don't know if I actually did a cartwheel, but I'm sure I did a little dance and a wiggle and a hoot and a holler. And she goes, I haven't thought through all the details. I've just been bouncing around the idea for a couple days. Let me know if you might be willing to consider it. No pressure. And my response in all caps and exclamation was absolutely.
Yes.
And so I've been brewing IMOS, and we have a trial out in the pasture.
Okay.
Applied and non-applied, and we're checking not just Haney, PLFA, water infiltration, stuff like that. We're doing DNA testing, showing an example of what IMOS will bring to the table, because it is an ecological system, and ecology is different everywhere. And so you can't tell, a farmer in Iowa, this is what IMOS will do for you, because your system's different.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. And so we're doing side-by-sides in the pasture, and we're doing side-by-sides in the high tunnel.
Okay.
And I will kind of show you what the plan is in the second high tunnel and what we're doing. It's going to be research first. And because in order to push the soil to produce the way I want in the high tunnel, it's going to need some love.
Yeah.
Up front and continual.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
So when did you apply it? Or have you applied
Oh, I've been putting IMOS everywhere.
Yeah.
I applied.
Well, like, when will your trial, like, you find out? I mean, obviously it's ongoing.
So, so in the pasture, I applied foliar.
Okay.
Late spring, early summer.
Okay.
We haven't, and then, so I applied foliar, and then we planted on 4th of July, we planted a cover crop into the pasture, and I had bioprimed with IMOS, the seed. Cool. The greenhouse tunnel hasn't started yet. We got the greenhouse finished. I've got the beds marked, but we'll do side by side with bioprimed IMOS, but I'll also apply through the drip lines and whatever else.
Awesome.
And we're using microbiometers. I think that's it's DNA testing.
Who do you send that to? Is it like you dig up the soil, or you cut the? Okay.
You dig up soil from the root zone, the rhizosphere.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's exciting. And then, in the evolution of the IMOS story, naturally, I'm just telling everybody and anybody who will listen to me about IMOS and how excited I am and this amazing thing that Kelly and Deanna have done and how they're bringing it to people. And, people started asking me, well, can you do it for me? And I was like, I told a lot of people no at first. And finally my husband's like, well, why don't you ask Kelly and Deanna how they feel about that? And they're like, well, yeah, first of all, you need an affiliate link. So I do have an affiliate link for Guardian Grains. Cool. I'll have you link that in your show notes. If people want to purchase the video series and their kits and pasta and flour and all the other things from them, then I will get a kickback. And that's a nice little extra income for me.
Yes. Put it towards the farm.
Yes. And then Kaylee and Dan were like, yeah, absolutely. If you want to help people, you should help people. But you're selling a service, not a product, and it needs to be ecologically appropriate. And so I've helped gardeners anywhere from, somebody with a cute little backyard garden that's, growing a solid amount of food for themselves, up to master gardeners and people with production, market gardens to... there's a farmer out in Pratt, Todd Tobin, who's pretty darn...
Have you helped him with it? Yeah, cool. There you go.
He's,
We'll have to see what...
I'm excited to see.
That'll be fun. I love the local, it's literally happening 30 miles away from us. Like, let's go look at the farm. And he's always like, it feels like he's willing to share kind of thing. Yeah.
So, I would still like to push people to purchase the kit and do it for yourselves because you can do it.
Yeah.
If that's too much, I'll meet you where you're at and I'll hold your hand and I'll help you.
Yeah.
But it's not hard.
Yeah.
It might be overwhelming at first because it's new, but it's not hard.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, it's powerful.
Yeah.
Biology is powerful.
Yeah. Well, that's what we had the cattle, and we were like, okay, rotational grazing, we gotta, this is the way to do it. Don't feed grain or whatever. But the animals, livestock is only so much, is what we found in our short 5 years. Like, you have to go back to the soil and help the soil. So we're in this sticky point of okay, that kind of takes cash flow or money to put cover crops and all that down. But I don't know. I think this is something that you could do even.
Yeah, it's not, IMOS isn't a bug in a jug. And there are bug in a jugs out there that I've done research with, or I've read the research on, or I've seen the side-by-sides and the farmer testimonials, and there are good products out there. Some of them are kind of expensive. And I mean, if that works for you, then do it. But I really like the way Kelly and Deanna structured it, that to empower the farmer. You're gonna pay for some education. Yeah. And then you're gonna build your own brewer, and after that, the price per acre is fantastically minuscule. Yeah. it's so small that when I've seen a lot of farmers or producers look at it, they're like, oh, it has no value because it's not $40 an acre. And I'm like, well, you're missing the point then.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
That's IMOS.
Cool.
Let's go out and pasture.
Yeah, there we go. I know. I need to. Oh, here, wait. I want to end with one thing. Okay. Over the last few years, we've gone through different things with our farm and struggles and stuff. And I found that relying on God is the only way for us to get through.
That's right.
Farming. Like that whole, what is it? God made a farmer. I mean, that makes me tear up and cry.
Oh, yeah.
Every time, because it hits home. And so this podcast is part of that. It's called Feed the Sheep because, I don't know, just a little way of giving my light to people. So I just wanted to close in like a little prayer for you and your farm. So, God, I ask that you watch over Shelby, her family, farm, and her sheep flock. Let the winter be mild and her vegetables grow abundantly. Let her feed her community with the food that she's produced, and let the light that you filled her with shine through to others. Thank you for giving me such an inspirational woman to look to, and let our paths cross again soon. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's go see the sheep.
Okay. If you guys want to see the tour that I got of Shelby's farm, go check it out on our Balanced Ruminant Grazer YouTube channel.